at Cancel Me Baby, we are not in the business of pussyfooting around, but we are in the business of getting right to it and airing out the thoughts and the conversations that we are all having behind closed doors. Now, one of those conversations in media, advertising, pop culture, right, is around representation and equity and sensitivity and inclusion. Now, a subset, if you will, of that is people with disabilities, so to speak. Now, I have two guests with me who can speak to this, and I can't think of two better people who I would rather have join today to talk about this on a cultural level, as I just said, and also the realities and misconceptions of day-to-day life. I feel like this is about to be like the real representation. Like this is about to be the shit you're not normally seeing. So let me introduce my guests before I have them take the stage. They're so awesome and you're going to love them. We'll have ladies first. We have Caitlyn Pallas here today. So Caitlyn and I actually grew up together. We went to high school together. We cheerleaded together. Like Caitlyn never forget, right? So some memories I bury of that. But a little bit about Caitlyn, guys. So when Caitlyn was 20, she fell out of a tree and dislocated her neck. Subsequently, she's technically a quadrapelegic and she's partially paralyzed from the chest down. She went on a physical therapy journey, went back to school, and then a few years later, what have you, but she was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. Went through chemo and yay, is all in the clear. But really fought that fight, and now she's embarking on a law school journey. She's done wheelchair modeling in the past. So that's a little bit about Caitlyn. So I don't want to hear any of you complain about anything ever again. Thanks. Okay. So next, we have my friend Chris Koch. And Chris is a motivational speaker. He's done Tedx. When I asked Chris in our preliminary chat of his condition, so to speak, he said, there's a fancy name for it, but I don't even know what it is. So Chris was born with partially developed limbs. He calls himself a quadruple amputee. He is a farmer. He will literally like kick your ass. Again, I don't feel bad for you. He has done marathons. He is a travel bum. An adaptive athlete, he says, and he has the hashtag in all of his work, if I can. So without further ado, guys, first of all, I just want to thank you for being such supporters. I know you're a fan of Cancel Me Baby and for being so game. I told you guys both about this idea and you were game right away without any hesitation. And, you know, I have to say, I'm just so blown away because in an era of such laziness and entitled people, you guys have such great attitudes and non-victim mentalities about life. So welcome to the show. Let's kick it off right away with the word disability, right? So you guys are obviously beyond capable and able. You've both gone on to do such amazing things. You've superseded what any other person could do, right? So when people say disabled, do you even feel like that's an accurate way to describe your situation or who you are? You're like, nah.
I personally, yes. Am I disabled? Yeah. That people hate to be put in boxes, but people also like labels. So it's weird. So for me, I could give two shits. Disabled, handicap. I mean, obviously it's not a acceptable term anymore, but my brother has me in his phone as cripple. So I mean, we're okay about it. It is it is absolutely I don't like that word, but he just we have a roasting sense of humor in my whole family. But like for me, it's just a word. Am I disabled? Yeah, there's some things that I'm not able to do. But I don't really care what you call it. I'm Chris. This is really what it boils down to in the end.
Caitlyn, how about you? And even Chris, you and Caitlyn, you had such a great comment when we chatted yesterday. You're like, if people are staring, it's like, again, I love how you guys both have a like, let's get right to it, and the honesty. Like Caitlyn, you said to me, people are staring. It's like, I'd rather you not stare, just ask. And Chris, you'd made a comment to me yesterday as well in our preliminary call of, people kind of pussyfooting around and not knowing how to act. So Caitlyn, what would you say in terms of someone kind of describing, like, I'm sure I'm even guilty of it and did it with you guys too. And it's like, disability. Even when I created the Zoom and the calendar invite, I wrote, cancel me, baby, disability chat. And I'm like, is that right? Is that wrong? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. I am not able to do a lot of the things I was able to do before. So disabled, I think in like the disability community, there's people who argue like little things. Are you a disabled woman or a woman with a disability? And like, it's like, why do you have to get so specific about it? Like, I don't know. It just, that's kind of my thing. I'm like, it is what it is. Every day you get up and you do what you have to do. So why, like, yes, obviously there's a label to it, but there's 100 different labels you can put on me for a million other things, the same way you could put on other people. So
Is there a term, like Chris, you mentioned cripple, and I'm trying to think in my head what I like the equivalent of what I would experience, right? Like something like a dumb blonde or a bimbo, where it's like it doesn't personally, like, you're like, it's annoying, but whatever. Like, how do you guys with terms around your lifestyle and how you are, how do you navigate all that? Are there terms that you're like, absolutely not? And are there terms, again, like the dumb blonde or the bimbo or cripple, right? Where it's like, okay, it's annoying, but whatever.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like I said earlier, it's just they're words. It really doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I when I was a little kid, I was sent to get my first set of prosthetic arms. Like, it was 3 years old. I was sent to the Bloorview set in Toronto, Ontario, the Bloorview Center for Crippled Children. That's what it was actually called back in like 1982 or 83.
Mm-hmm.
We're beyond that now, and there's some terms that I'd rather not hear, but I guess what my brother has me in his phone as, it's just razzing one another. Like, if somebody off the street was like, oh, it's so unfortunate that you're crippled. I'm like, well, yeah, no, it's really not that bad, and maybe pick a better word next time. But there's
Got it.
people, I use the term disabled or handicap or amputee, and there's people that are fully able. They're the ones who are correcting me. No, well, you're not technically an amputee because you were born like that. It's like, okay, well,
Right.
you call me whatever you feel you need to call me then.
Caitlyn, how about you? I see you're laughing.
I mean, yeah, people are weird about it, and it's like, obviously I'm a wheelchair user. I think the only one that really gets me is like wheelchair bound. Like, I am clearly in no way tied to this chair. Like, you just watch me get out of my chair into my car, back off, like get on the floor and do yoga at the gym. Like, that's the one that just like, it is what it is, but it just makes me a little nuts. Like, thinking that yeah, it's, you need the chair to get around. It's actually like a good thing to have, but people make like that one makes it sound like it's like this terrible thing you're stuck with, where it really gives you a lot of freedom. So I think that's the only one that really kind of drives me crazy.
Well, that's my issue with this whole thing at large, because I feel like it's so contradictory, right? Because on one end of it, it's like real representation and inclusion, yet it puts people in these boxes. And I'm sure for you guys, it's extremely frustrating, because it's like, I love what you said, Caitlyn. It's like, there's so much more to my identity than that. And on my show, I talk about it in terms of gender, of race, right? It's like, if somebody's Black, okay, here's a checklist of all the things they are. If someone's a woman, here's the checklist of all the things they are. And it's such bullshit. So talk about having those boxes imposed on you and being like, no, I'm so much more than that. Stop putting me in a box. Like, this is actually almost like more harmful than it is helpful.
I think too, when you get into the labels and ticking boxes and stuff like that, then you have some people who, and this goes for any box or any category or whatever, but people get chastised or ridiculed because they're not Christian enough, or they're not vegan enough, or they're not black enough, or they're not, disabled enough, or whatever. It's like, come on, like just stay in your lane, do what you do need to do to make you the happiest, and I'll do what I got to do to make myself the happiest. And as long as we're not, infringing on anybody's rights or anybody's getting hurt or killed, then there's really no harm, no foul.
It's like you will stay in that lane, in that wheelchair, okay? And you will be suppressed because and you will rise above, right? And it's like, actually, no. Like, Caitlyn, to your point, it's like, I'm actually living my life, but thanks, I'm good over here, right? What are some things about you that you wish, again, like, I love what you said, there's so many more things about me. Like, what are some things about you that you're like, I'm so much more than this? Again, like, even like the fact that you're going to law school, like some things that you wish, would be highlighted when people see you or meet you. And it's like, I'm so much more than this and what you see.
It's kind of like when women get pissed off that somebody gives them like a visual compliment and they're like, oh, but I'm so smart. Well, that's nice. No one can see that. Like your first reaction is going to be from what you see. You can't read somebody's mind to know what they like or how smart they are, or whatever. I guess it's just like that. I feel like sometimes people project these ideas about disability and like what you can do or can't do instead of asking or just like waiting to see what happens. Or I don't know, that's kind of, you want to be treated just like any other individual. Granted, people make those judgments about other people too, like they make judgments about your race or about your gender, and like you just have to wait and treat each person as the individual they are and get to know them regardless of what they can do or can't do or what they look like. So
And it's so powerful in that with all of these things, it's like I always say, like, the physicality, of course, it's the first thing that we see, but there's also so much more to us. And within those groups, we're all individuals. Caitlyn, like you said yesterday to me, it's like you can't possibly, like, one person's experience in said group does not speak for everybody. And it's like, I feel like in this, again, sweep of what is well-intentioned inclusion, it also, I think, pigeonholes people in those categories, right? And it's like, no, we're actually all individuals. Like, we're not all the same in this way. Talk to me, you guys, about people pussyfooting around you. And both of you in your own ways have said to me, like, just be honest. Like, Chris, you told me a great story about messing with these chicks when you were out. I think you said you were at a bar or something like that. So talk to me about how people act. Like, I'm sure people act differently around you, and how you kind of have a sense of humor and mess around with it, and how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, I use humor a lot in life. My family, we're always joking around. We add levity to every single thing. I told you in our chat yesterday, my grandma's reaction when she heard I was missing arms and legs was to say that my dad never finished anything he started.
I said that's slacker.
Yeah, that set the tone. And I personally find humor to be a great icebreaker. When people first meet me, and I'm sure Caitlyn, same thing, they're not too sure what to say, how to react. They don't want to say anything rude or inappropriate, and so if I can crack a joke right from the get-go, it puts people at ease. They realize I'm just a regular dude enjoying life, having fun. Actually, you're in Tennessee. I was in Chattanooga before a conference I was speaking at, and I was getting a quick haircut, just a little bit of a trim. And there's a kid waiting in the kind of waiting area, maybe 10 or 11 years old, 12 years old tops. And when the barber finished, he spins the chair around and takes off the cape. And obviously this kid's not expecting the guy with arms and legs to be in that chair. So the look on his face was like, and I said, are you getting your haircut next? He goes, yeah. I said, well, you better be careful. I said, I had arms and legs when I first got in that chair. So, he didn't quite get the joke, but everybody else in the barbershop had a good laugh. It's like, life's too short to take life too seriously. So yeah, I do find the humor, it puts people at ease, but also Like, it's just, people don't want to use the wrong language. I don't know how many times I've had somebody ask me, "Oh, can I give you a hand with anything?" I'm like, yeah, no, that'd be great. But or they catch themselves and then they feel bad. It's like, it's fine. I'm not gonna get upset. It's all good. It's just, as long as, I mean, when those things are coming out, it's not with malicious intent. So, it is what it is. I can advocate for others if somebody does maybe go a little bit too far and be like, hey, maybe not the right way to put it, or maybe not the right question to ask, or I'm glad you asked me that question and not somebody else who, has been in a horrific accident that they're trying to get over the whole emotional and psychological aspect of it. But no, I'm pretty chill and easygoing when it comes to all that kind of stuff.
Caitlyn, how about you?
I have like a little different experience because I know how people treated me before. And I don't think I'm like naturally a funny, like outgoing person. I tend to be kind of on the shy, like quiet side of things. So I noticed that before that didn't necessarily stop people from approaching me, but now people are like, they don't know what to do. But I can't put it all on them. I've only been in the chair about like 11 years, and I'm a lot more comfortable now than I was, say, 2 years after when I went back to school for the first time. And I was surrounded by all these people who were just living their, 20 something life fairly normally. And I was trying to learn to navigate. So it's like a little give, it is a give and take. Like, if, like you said, if you crack a joke, you make people more comfortable, but it's, I have to get used to operating in this body differently and in the world differently, and just interacting with people differently than I would have. It's sometimes it's awkward. You're like always staring up at people, you're always at a different angle than people don't know where to like look, where to stand, how to get close to you. Like, hugs are so awkward sometimes because you're just like, you just want natural human interaction, but it's there's something in the way, and it's so people don't know how to react. You just have to kind of go with the flow and see what happens. Just naturally, like, be who you are, I guess. Like, I don't really know. It's like something I'm still getting used to. And every time you have a different interaction with a different person, again, it's entirely different depending on what the situation is. If you're at work, you're out somewhere.
What would you
That's
say, Caitlyn? Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that's a interesting perspective that I never really thought of, that you mentioned, Caitlin, is you can remember back 11 years ago when people treated you differently or reacted to you differently or approached you differently than they do now. I don't have that frame of reference. And I thought that was super interesting. I have talked a lot about how, I was born missing arms and legs. I've never known anything different, so it's been fairly easy. But I have huge respect for somebody who's lost an arm or lost legs or multiple. And I mean, massive, massive respect for you. Not only did you have your accident at 20, but, battling, cancer a few years later, you are an absolute warrior. So my hat's off to you on that. But, for somebody, I don't have this, like I can think life would be so much easier if I had arms and legs, but I don't know that. I have no idea what it's like. Whereas, you can remember when when the two of you were in cheerleading together, and you could do all those things. So there's emotional and psychological thing to overcome. So yeah, like, people say to me, "Oh, you're amazing. What you're doing is awesome." I'm like, yeah, you know what? Need to check out Caitlin and other people who are doing some pretty badass stuff that have overcome a hell of a lot more than I have.
Don't sell yourself short, Chris. But
Is that a short joke?
Caitlyn is my, what's that?
Is that a short joke?
It actually, okay. You call me, I was literally going to be like, don't sell yourself short, even though you are short. And then see, in the moment I held back because I was like, is that inappropriate? But you read my mind. But what I was going to say was Caitlyn is, I was telling her yesterday, like, first of all, you're my hero. But she's modest. when we were cheerleaders, Caitlyn was the one like doing back handsprings on my head. And I was like, guys, I got this summer salt over here. Like, check it out. Like, so that's why for someone like, I mean, both of you and Caitlyn, you're exactly right, Chris, like the specificity of your journey of having almost lived both lives is something emotionally, physically that I can't even imagine. And I'm curious, you know, something you said that really stuck out to me was how people treated you differently. Like it's almost like then versus now. Like what would you say is the biggest difference of how people treat you?
Again, they're just very careful about
Yeah.
what they say, and they, I don't know, I'm fairly open about things, so like to tell people all of these things that have happened, their like reactions are, they don't know how to they don't know how to deal with like everything that's happened. I think they like assume it's baggage, and like so they're like too afraid to, I don't know how to explain it exactly. I'm
It's
sorry.
almost, it's like, I don't want to say a guilt, but it's
Maybe. Yeah.
almost like a guilt. It's even what they talk about with like white guilt. It's like
Mhm.
non-disabled guilt. And I'm wondering from both of you guys, of course you're going to be like, absolutely not. And again, you guys are both like the biggest badasses because you are so like, I think that your attitudes about life is absolutely phenomenal. But should, I don't want to say guilt, but should people feel an extra sort of like a sensitivity? Or should it just be like, nope, like treat you guys exactly as if like there's nothing going on there, you know?
You go ahead, Caitlin. I'm
No, go. It's okay. Go ahead.
I'm a polite Canadian now, and I want to be ladies first. Um,
Chivalry, everybody.
I I guess for me, no, eh, you do you. Just be grateful for what you have. And don't, cheat yourself out of opportunities. And that's, one of my biggest thing with my presentations. Like I don't want people to feel guilty. I don't want people to feel anything other than just happy to, be alive, whether you have a disability or whatever your situation, for lack of a better way, is. Just get out there and be enjoying life. There does not need to be any sort of guilt. Be like, oh, I feel bad. I have arms and legs and I can do this, and this guy doesn't have arms and legs. You know what? I'm out there doing a lot of the stuff that there's people who have arms and legs aren't doing. So there's really no room for guilt. And that's the other thing, is like, just do you to the best of your abilities. And like I said, in the end, just be grateful for what you have and don't cheat yourself out of opportunities.
Yeah, I guess I would say pretty much the same thing. I don't want people to feel bad because everybody, like I said yesterday, we were talking, like everybody has things in their life. You can't say, oh, her situation's so much worse than mine, when I could see somebody who's, lost a parent, lost a job, had all of these other, you know, other situations that were equally as emotionally difficult to deal with. So you can't sit around and say like, oh, it could be worse. You have to like be grateful for what you have, but also acknowledge that things aren't great and then deal with them. So like you can't just say feel the guilt for somebody else.
The craziest thing about both of you, because for those of you guys listening, and you may have gathered this by now, I had sort of just preliminary chats with both of these guys yesterday separately, and both of you are like, it could be worse. And I'm like, what? Like, you're so not victims. You have such great attitudes about life. And I have to imagine, and we talked about this already, but again, in a time when people are so self-absorbed, lazy, entitled, and have a conniption at the most minor inconvenience, while you are like, I'm completely able, I do my thing and I work hard and I'm not a victim and I rise above, I also imagine that you're like, can you please shut the fuck up? Like, I do not feel bad that your nail appointment was canceled and that you didn't get more than 200 likes on your TikTok. Like, I have to imagine you're like, can you please shut up? Thanks. When you see that kind of behavior.
It is human nature to when somebody is complaining about something that is so seemingly trivial and minute in the grand scheme of things, like seriously, like come on, like,
Well,
suck
which
it
is
up.
everyone over everything these days. I always think like our grandparents and great grandparents be like, you guys are a joke. Like the things that and now everyone complains about it. Like no one can rough anything.
No, and that's like, you know what? If people want to piss and moan and whinge and cry about whatever's going on in their life, that's their prerogative. I even find myself, you know, whining and crying about certain things, and then I kind of stop myself and go, you know what, I need to just shut up and suck it up and get over it. And I always think of the Robin Williams quote: "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about." So we all have shit. We all have stuff we're trying to get through. And people assume that my biggest challenges in my day to day are the fact that I'm missing arms and legs. No, it's when I let this get in the way. It's the 6 inches of space between the ears. It's when I, throw wrenches into my own spokes and fuck things up. Those are my worst days. And then in that respect, we're all the same in that when you look at it that way.
Mind over matter.
Yeah, definitely. Like I mean, obviously the physical things are frustrating some days. So it's like it'll be a series of things. And when you just let it build and get to you, you kind of it just derails everything. And you're like, I could have had such a better day if I didn't just let these little frustrations get in the way. And you just have to like hope the muscle spasm isn't so bad the next day, or hope that nobody asks you 100 times if you need help with something tomorrow, so you don't get all aggravated with people.
In the spirit of transparency, what are some, Chris, we got the highbrow raise going on. What are some misconceptions about, you guys talk about, day-to-day things. What are some misconceptions? Like I'm talking everything from like sex to texting to working out, like whatever it is. What are some things that are not as challenging as people would think, and some things that are actually more challenging that it's like, oh, I wouldn't even think of that?
For me, I think like I like to pretend like it's not a challenge, but getting in and out of my car every day is a giant pain in the ass. Like I have to get in the car, take the chair apart, and like, but it's more of a pain when sometimes it's more of a pain when people ask you if you need help, and they think like they're being helpful, and you're like, I have a system of doing things. So sometimes I guess the frustrating thing is people asking you if you need help when you've already figured out how to do something on your own. I don't know what else is like difficult. You get up, you do the same shit everybody else does. It took me a while to like figure out with my hands how to like do my hair again and stuff. It's just like little things, buttons, zippers, reaching stuff at the grocery store, but like that was a problem before. Wasn't that a new thing? I don't know.
That's right, because you're short like me, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Chris is like, actually, neither of you know. So
Yeah, well,
you tried
I
it.
mean, in my day-to-day height-related things, going to the grocery store, I mean, just yesterday, or this morning, sorry, I was at the grocery store and the drink that I wanted was at the very top. I'm like, they put all the good shit up up high where I can't reach it. But and when you were saying, Caitlin, when somebody asks you if you need some help, you're like, no, I got it. It never fails. If they stick around to watch you do it, you will fuck it up somehow, and
You're
you will
like, I have an
fumble, and
audience.
you look like an idiot, and then you turn to them, you're like, I swear to God, I can do this just fine. I get stage fright because you're watching me. But and then the other one that came to mind, Taylor, when you first asked the question, is like you mentioned sex, and that's I've had people, and it was funny, there was a stretch where I was asked that question like 2-3 times in less than a week, and one was by a friend who I've known for a while and I thought would have known differently, but they're like, basically, it's like, so are you missing just arms and legs, or is there anything else that's missing? Oh my God.
I'm screaming.
Oh, I'm only missing arms and legs. Everything else is there and it works just fine.
You're like, and it makes up for what's lacking, if you know what I mean. No.
Yeah.
Maybe your testosterone was just popping that week, Chris, and people were like, we need to know.
I don't know
We
what was
need to
going on.
know.
Yeah.
That is so funny. I know. I love when I said the sex thing and you both are like, Taylor, we didn't sign up for this. Like, can you stop? But that's really so interesting what you said about people asking to help, because right, it's like now I have an audience and it's just got awkward. Like, yeah. That's so interesting. Now, before we get into, because I'm dying for your perspectives on, the PC-ness of it all. And it seems like from what I've gathered so far, you both kind of have a similar take on this. But before we get into that, I often feel like you guys can be, when talking about like the quotas, right? I feel like often you guys can be like the punchline. Like when people talk about all these quotas in advertising and in Hollywood, it's like, oh, we have the gay person, the black person, the trans person, the person in a wheelchair, right? Like that kind of thing. And so when you hear that, how do you feel? Not to be the boner killer from what we just brag, but how does that, not to be the buzzkill, but how does that make you feel?